"I don't know why," he said, his voice low, almost as though he was confessing a secret, "but it feels like I've known you for longer than just tonight." She blinked, startled, because his words echoed the very thought that had been circling her mind all evening. A laugh slipped past her lips, soft and uncertain. "I was just thinking the same thing," she admitted, and in that instant it was as if the invisible line between them vanished. They were no longer two strangers, no longer cautious steps on unfamiliar ground. They were something else, something unexplainable, yet undeniable. The wind tugged gently at her scarf, and instinctively he reached out to fix it before it slipped from her shoulders. His hand lingered for a fraction of a second longer than it should have, and though neither of them spoke, their eyes locked again, and the air between them grew charged with a quiet electricity. She could feel her heart beating faster, not with fear, but with the terrifying and beautiful realization that something had begun here tonight, something that could change everything. Reluctantly, she pulled herself back into the moment, glancing toward the building where she lived. "This is me," she whispered, almost apologetically, as though saying it aloud would break the magic. He nodded, though every part of him wanted to ask for more, for another hour, another conversation, another step through the night together. Then, "I guess this is good night," he said softly. But even as he spoke, there was a quiet question in his eyes, a hope that this wasn't goodbye. She hesitated, her hand resting lightly on the strap of her bag. And then, as though compelled by a courage she didn't know she had, she smiled and said, "Good night, but not the last one." With that, she turned and walked slowly toward her building, each step heavy with the knowledge that something extraordinary had just been set into motion. He stood there for a long moment, watching until she disappeared inside, and only then did he let out the breath he didn't realize he had been holding. That night, long after they had parted ways, both of them lay awake in their separate rooms, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail. The words spoken, the laughter shared, the way their eyes had met like two stories finally intertwining. And though neither of them could explain it, both of them knew with absolute certainty this was only the beginning.
The following morning, sunlight streamed into her room through half-drawn curtains, but sleep had been fragile at best. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face beneath the lamplight, the quiet intensity of his smile, the gentleness in the way he had reached for her scarf. She kept turning onto her side, hugging her pillow as if it could contain the warmth of what she had felt just hours ago. There was something thrilling, almost reckless, about realizing that one evening could change the rhythm of her entire heart. She was used to this. Her days had always been predictable, carefully planned, steady. And now, all at once, it felt as though someone had stirred a storm inside her, and though she should have been afraid, she found herself craving the unknown. Meanwhile, across town, he sat at his small kitchen table, a mug of coffee cooling untouched in his hands. He was the man who normally lingered on moments. Life for him had always been a matter of moving forward, of practical steps and decisions. Yet here he was, unable to think of anything else but her. Every detail of last night replayed in his head, the tilt of her head when she laughed, the thoughtful way she paused before speaking, as though she weighed her words with care. He found himself smiling at nothing, something he had done in years, and the realization unsettled him even as it filled him with a quiet, unexpected joy. By the time the day unfolded into late afternoon, both of them were caught in a restless tug-of-war between longing and hesitation. Should they reach up? Should they wait? The fear of seeming too eager fought against the desire to not let the thread between them slip away. Finally, as the sun dipped lower, he gave in to instinct. His fingers hovered over his phone for what felt like an eternity before he typed a simple message. "I hope you slept well, and I see you again today." When her phone buzzed against the table beside her, she froze, her heart leaping into her throat. She picked it up slowly, almost afraid to hope it was him. And when she read the words, a smile broke across her face, soft and involuntary, the kind of smile that could light an entire room. She stared at the screen for a long moment, biting her lip as her mind raced. Should she play it safe? Should she make him wait? But no, something inside her told her not to let fear interfere. So with trembling fingers, she typed back, "Yes, I'd like that." An hour later, they met again. This time, it wasn't under the accident of chance or the excuse of wandering streets. It was a choice, deliberate and clear. As soon as she saw him waiting by the cafe near the square, her steps quickened without her meaning to. He noticed her before she even reached him, and that familiar warmth spread across his face, as though her presence alone was enough to brighten everything. They spent the evening in the cafe, talking over steaming cups of tea and coffee. The hours passed unnoticed, words flowing easily between them like a river finding its course. They spoke of small things, childhood memories, favorite books, little details that didn't seem important but, in truth, wove the threads of their hearts closer together. Every now and then, silence would settle between them, but it was never uncomfortable. Instead, it felt alive, humming with something unspoken, something that grew stronger with every glance and every smile. By the time they stepped out again, night had already fallen. The city lights shimmered against the pavement.